Welcome to another episode of V4 Veganism. I am here with Joshua Katcher. He is the owner and founder of the ethical fashion brand Brave Gentleman, and he's also a guest lecturer at various design schools around the world. Thank you so much, Joshua, for doing this with us and talking with us.
My pleasure.
Thank you. So before we get into all of this amazing, beautiful stuff around us, I have to ask you, how did you discover veganism? When did you become vegan, and what kind of triggered that?
I discovered veganism when I was a teenager. I actually remember being in camp and having a camp counselor who was vegan.
Oh, wow.
And thinking how crazy that sounded. I think I must have been about 12 when I first, heard the term. And I just thought it was kind of weird. I was like, oh, what do you just eat salads? And, it's funny because now people ask me that question.
Yeah.
Later on in life, like a few years later, when I was about 15, I decided to go vegetarian after learning about what was happening to the rainforests for cattle grazing.
Okay.
So during high school, there was a lot of concern in the 1990s for the rainforests. Everything was about rainforest conservation. So I was in an after-school club. We learned about cattle grazing, and I thought that was crazy. It was the first time I'd ever really questioned where my food was coming from. Mm-hmm. Just this idea that, living in New York, and there's meat being made somewhere like far away in the rainforest. I just thought that, like, who, why? And that question led me down a path that resulted ultimately in my going vegan, and animal ethics quickly became the central concern for me. Okay. Environmental concern is, very important, but my high school library had Peter Singer's Animal Liberation in it, luckily.
Wow.
So I stumbled across it and took it out and read it, and from then on I was changed.
I think you're so lucky to have discovered it so early on. I don't think I questioned what I was eating until I got out of high school and was in college, and even then didn't really question it too much. I was handed a pamphlet about vegetarianism, and as an actor, I was looking for ways to be healthy, aka skinny.
Okay.
So someone gave me this pamphlet about vegetarianism, and I was like, yeah, I'll do that, whatever. So that's your vegan story, but
right.
How did you know that fashion was your calling?
Fashion is not something I ever imagined doing.
Okay.
It's really funny that, if I were to tell my teenage self that I would have a fashion brand one day, I probably would have laughed. I was somebody who always saw fashion as something silly and frivolous and about vanity and somehow not intellectual, not cerebral, and I wrote it off, which is something that a lot of the activism community does. Mm-hmm. They tend to see anything that has to do with aesthetics as being silly or inconsequential. So learning about fashion and seeing its influence on identity, on environment, on animals, on people, on working people. This is a global industry with huge impacts. And the fact that it is an aesthetic industry it's an interesting combination, because it makes it very easy for people to not want to think about it and not have to think about it. And meanwhile, behind the scenes, behind all these sleek marketing campaigns and fashion shows, there is this global industrial complex that requires the bodies of billions of animals and ecosystems everywhere, and slave labor. It's an industry that needs meaningful legislation passed around it and needs better innovation and better leaders. So I got into fashion as an activist to change the fashion industry.
Okay. So did you go to school for fashion?
I went to school for art, so they're neighboring. They're not exact.
Yeah.
So I have an idea of design and an idea of aesthetics and art history, and it definitely made me a better fashion designer, but no, I didn't study fashion per se.
Interesting.
I started writing about it in 2008 when I started my blog, The Discerning Brood. At the time, it was the first men's lifestyle vegan blog. There wasn't very much content out there for vegan men. So I decided to make something that spoke to more of the mainstream man. I looked at things like GQ and Esquire and I said, how can I take a format like this and apply it to an ethical lifestyle? And the Discerning Brute was born from writing that, doing research, looking for things that I wanted that didn't exist. I said, oh, there's a big hole in the market. There's things that I would love to have, just a really nice, well-made pair of shoes that don't look like they're for hippies, or you know, that are durable, that are made with craftsmanship and quality, that aren't, you know, going to fall apart in 2 weeks. And so I went on this journey of trying to make something, and one thing led to the other, and here we are. You
know, filling that hole is so important because that is the narrative that is out there right now, is that vegan products fall apart very quickly.
Anytime somebody says, oh, this is going to fall apart, there's a few things happening. One is that they are responding to very effective marketing from the leather industry. The leather industry has spent a lot of money to own words like authentic, real, genuine. These are not words that are essentially attached to leather. These are words that have been marketed with leather. So there is this programming that we need to associate leather with durability and quality. And the idea that there aren't man-made materials that are more durable, that are superior to leather, it's kind of silly. There are. The materials we use here, they outperform leather. And I don't like using words like faux and fake because I think it really devalues what that thing is. I use terms like future leather, superior leather. And maybe those terms aren't perfect, but I'm always looking for ways to talk to people, especially people who come into the store who aren't vegan, to talk to them about what this material is and why it's better.
The using the future in front of these materials, is that you, or is that like an industry thing that's being put out there?
I started referring to future wool, future silk, future leather because I didn't want to say fake. It's not fake. These are real things.
Right here.
It's not make-believe. And who wants to wear something that's fake? What does it say? If fashion is about identity and you're wearing something that's fake, it means, what does it mean? You're a fake person? That you're a phony? That you're pretending to be something that you're not? I think that it has a really damaging impact on the perception of ethical fashion in general. And I think the same thing about food. I hate saying like, oh, fake meat or fake cheese. Like, no, these are real foods. They're not like toys.
It's not, I'm not eating plastic. Like
it's actually real. It's so important to have a more evolved and a continually evolving way of speaking about these things. And I think people put a lot of emphasis on the ethical correctness, which is fine, rather than the marketing. And it needs to be both. You can be right and you can be correct, but that isn't necessarily going to overcome the perceived correctness of aesthetics or the perceived correctness of marketing.
I didn't know that people said this, but I read this on your website that people say, you know, why is your stuff so expensive? Personally, for a boutique shop, I feel that the numbers are on par with other boutique shops in New York City. Like, hey, we're in New York City. If you go to any other fashion boutique in New York, these are gonna be the prices that you're going to pay. But you have a reason for that.
Absolutely. And look, fashion is not a right. No one is obligated to buy my stuff. However, an ethical fashion system cannot be cheap. Just paying someone fairly for their labor is going to result in a higher price point at retail. I actually get that question a lot. Why is ethical fashion expensive? And usually my response is, to turn the question around, not why is this so expensive, but why is there fashion that's so cheap?
Right.
What does that say about the fashion system? How is it possible that there's a jacket that costs $30? And when you break that $30 down and you go back into that value chain and say, okay, this $30 means in order for a retail location to make money on it, they had to buy it at wholesale at about half of that. So they bought it maybe at $15. And then in order to make money, the designer had to sell it for $15. So then that $15 has to be broken up between materials, findings like buttons and zippers, labor, shipping, every cost that you can think of to move parts around, to put things together, all has to be shared in that original cost of production. So if something's cheap, that means somebody's getting screwed over, and it means that materials are probably cheap and toxic, and it's not a sustainable or ethical way of doing things.
Yeah.
Now, I agree, ethical fashion is expensive and not everyone can afford it. And that's a problem, and it's a larger problem. I think it's a systemic problem. The first thing is that no one has a right to buy anything that has to do with a luxury good.
Right.
So I'm not obligated to figure out a way to make this cheaper. I would love for it to be cheaper. And as more and more systems change to become more ethical, the prices will come down. But you're never going to have a $10 shirt that is made ethically. Right. Unless it's made in such enormous volumes that everyone in America could have one. Yeah. So it's a problem, and it's something that I think will be solved down the road. And for now, what I often tell people is, you're not just a consumer. That's a passive term. Consuming is sitting back and taking things in. You are a citizen investor. Your dollars that you spend, it's an investment in the system that's however that thing was made. So if you want to invest in a system that should flourish, then you should save up a little bit and find one brand that you really like what they're doing and buy one thing from them. Because for a small brand, one purchase makes a difference. Yeah. If somebody buys one belt from me, one pair of shoes, that actually matters. That makes a difference. Do the rest of your shopping at secondhand stores, at thrift stores, and you end up spending about the same amount of money. Because that thing that you spent more on, that you saved up for and got that one thing, it's going to last a long time. It's made with better quality materials, and there are ways to support ethical and sustainable businesses without feeling like you have to buy everything from them or have your entire wardrobe, because that's not possible. Who can do that? I can't do that. There's stuff in my own collection that I can't afford, but there are people who can. Yeah. And we should be using those resources to fund new ways of making things. It's the same in the food industry. Look how much the first lab-grown burger costs to make. Right. Like millions and millions of dollars. So it's an investment, and it's worth it, because even though the prices are higher and a lot of working people can't afford those prices, there are working people who make these things who need to make a living wage. Right. So there's an entire other side to fashion that is not seen. And it's just as valid as what is seen. Yeah, well, and also not just a living wage, but like ethically sourced. Your dyes are free of chemicals, and obviously the chemical dyes tend to be the cheaper ones. So yeah, a lot of what we use is as innovative as possible. It's not perfect. If anybody tries to be perfect, you're just going to be paralyzed. Right. So we try to do as best we can with what's out there and with our resources. So speaking of people who can afford your product, there are some very high-profile people that have endorsed Brave Gentlemen, such as Joaquin Phoenix and Alan Cumming. How did that come about? Did they contact you? Did you reach out to them? Well, with Alan's people, they reached out to us. Okay. Alan is vegan and very fashionable, and he's really big right now. He has, a new show, and he's always in films. He's award-winning. He just did the whole press week wearing all Brave Gentleman stuff on the late night shows, and
oh wow,
he actually rang the closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange wearing Brave Gentleman.
That's awesome.
And he's become like an ambassador for Brave Gentleman.
Yeah.
And then with Joaquin, that happened through PETA.
Okay.
PETA put us in contact. We did a campaign together about wool, and they used the clothing on him to do this big billboard that was about the cruelty of the wool industry, and they featured him in one of our suits. And that was in New York City during Fashion Week, a big billboard. It was in a few other cities too. So it's been really great to be a proof of concept that you can have a cruelty-free fashion brand and still make nice stuff.
Yeah.
So being able to prove that means that there's no need to use any of these things. There's no need to have to breed and raise and confine or trap and kill all of these animals to get their body parts to turn into materials. There is nothing about that other than tradition that makes it something to seek out.
Let's talk about some of these amazing products that you have here.
Yeah, well, I thought with the outfit that you're wearing, which is like very cool. You've got your combat boots and the floral on black, which
I had to get a little more fashion coming to this place today.
I thought
I need to look a little good.
I thought a motorcycle jacket would look good with that outfit.
Cool.
So this is one of our signature pieces. We make these moto jackets pretty much every season, and this one is made from organic cotton moleskin, which is it's not actually made from moles. It's just called that because it's like very fuzzy. It feels it feels kind of like velvet, but it's made from organic cotton.
Yeah.
Even the zippers on this are made with solar power. And a facility in the United States.
Oh, wow.
The lining is all made from recycled polyester. So this is a pretty sustainable, ethical jacket. It's made here in New York City. I go to the factory. I know the people who are sewing this.
Okay.
So here, why don't you try this on?
Yeah, please.
Consider that the motorcycle jacket has traditionally defined the rebel, right?
Yes.
The badass. So what do you think is more badass? Using a leather motorcycle jacket that comes from one of the most mainstream and common, hugely problematic industries, is that badass? No. This is much more an authentic symbol of a rebel. We are pushing back against the mainstream way of doing things. We are challenging systems, we're challenging power, and wearing one of our motorcycle jackets is a real incarnation of that rebelliousness. It's not just a meaningless symbol.
So I can't afford this jacket right now, but I think I might have to save up and come back and get this because I really love it.
It looks great on you.
Thank you. I love it.
So this is one of our classic carryalls, and this is made here in Brooklyn. And the material we're using is a high-tech EU eco-label certified material from Italy. And EU Ecolabel is a pretty stringent environmental certification from the European Union. So this material is made in Italy, and it is lighter weight than leather. Feel how light this is.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
If this were made out of an animal's skin, you'd be like, whoa.
It'd be really a heavy bag.
This is super lightweight. It's more durable than leather, more weather resistant, and it breaks in, it gets supple over time. I use this just as a carry-all, a weekender bag. I just throw everything in there. It's kind of like the Mary Poppins bag where you can, pull a lamp out of it.
Yeah.
But, it's unisex. It's got a masculine kind of design to it, but it really could be for anyone.
Yeah.
All of our stuff really is for anyone.
I agree with that.
This is from our signature collection footwear, which is our high-end footwear.
Okay.
Typically our shoes retail around $300, and these are all made by hand, and they're made with a Blake Rapid welt, and they're made with all hand-detailed soles, hand patinaed, with steel toe and heel steps for longevity.
Wow.
And this shoe retails at $640.
Okay.
In the luxury shoe realm, that's actually not that much.
No, I don't think so.
But to most people, that sounds kind of crazy, $640 for a pair of shoes. But this is something that you can repair. This is something that's going to last a long time. It's made with a lot of care and quality. And we use the same material that we talked about on the bag. This is a high-tech Italian material that is lighter weight, more durable, and more weather resistant than leather. And you end up with this beautiful luxury shoe that you don't often see in the vegan realm.
Yeah.
So
Same.
this is the other one, same idea. It's just a different style. This is what you call a single cut. So it makes a very sleek and seamless shape. There's very little detail. And I really like minimal design. I don't like anything overly decorated. I don't like stitching where it doesn't need to be, or logos, anything like that. This kind of shoe is just classic. This is something that will never go out of style. It is just your standard, sleek, black dress shoe. Actually, you know, there was a vegan fashion movement in the early 1900s in London.
Really?
In the book that I just wrote, Fashion Animals, I found some advertisements that no one else has seen probably since then. So there are all these old advertisements from London from the early 1900s where there were faux furs and faux leathers and these developments in fashion with specifically the goal of replacing cruel animal products.
Yeah.
So you think that vegan fashion is this new contemporary concept, but it's really been happening for over 100 years.
Right. Well, and there are also philosophers that we quote constantly. We're always talking about the cruelty of animals since, you know, the time of Plato.
Yeah.
And, you know, so this is obviously something that's been plaguing humanity for centuries. So yeah, the idea that it's like new and innovative is almost laughable. But I think, you know, social media and the advent of the internet and allowing us to spread information very quickly, a lot of people who, you know, maybe didn't have access to Plato's writings, you know, didn't know that people were talking about, you know, animal cruelty.
There are histories that will never be uncovered, and there are histories that exist that led up to this contemporary animal rights movement. So even Vogue participated. In Vogue magazine from 1900 to 1910, there was a column called Concerning Animals. And it was written by the founder of Vogue, the woman who named Vogue, Josephine Redding. She was the original editor. And her column was all about animal ethics. And they wrote about anything that you would consider a contemporary animal rights issue. They were talking about it in 1905. Everything from horse carriage cruelty, to dog fighting, to the fur industry, to the feather industry, to meat and its relationship with cancer. They were already discussing that in Vogue. Imagine what would have happened if that column didn't get extinguished.
Yeah.
I mean, Vogue would be one of the leading voices in the animal protection movement.
And I think, you know, it just shows how powerful some industries and lobbying can be. The fact that we have been talking about this for a really long time, but there are still...
It was advertisers who probably were the reason that column got nixed. Yeah. Because when Condé Nast took over the publication, they prioritized advertisers' interests first, not editorial interests. Yeah. And so you can see how an advertisement for feather hats next to a column criticizing the cruelty in the feather hat industry that was a problem.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking with us. Thank you for having us here.
Absolutely.
Your stuff is absolutely gorgeous. It's so well made. It feels great. I love the feel of this coat. I'm absolutely going to come back and get one for myself. Guys, please come check out Brave Gentleman. You can take the L train to Graham Avenue. It's very, very easy to get here. Come, you know, see what's here and, you know, spend your money where you believe it should be, and that's how we're gonna, you know, win this fight and how we're gonna fight back against these industries.
We have something for everyone, from as affordable as $40 for a wallet to as extravagant, you know, as you can think. Yeah. But there's something for everyone, and what we're doing is trying to make the fashion industry better. And this is just one step on that journey.
Yeah, and if you can't afford it, just follow Brave Gentleman on social media.
Buy my book.
buy the book, you know, make sure to promote the line, and thank you again, Joshua, so much. This is awesome. We really appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe below for all our other content, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.